What's up, everybody? It's your boy DJ 10th Power. I am the host of the QI podcast. We're here to kick off season 3. That's right, baby. We are back. Let's give an update from the season 2 finale, where we had interviewed Carol Hill Evans. She ran for re-election of her position, which is the state rep of PA, which she had won handily, and we send her congratulations on that. I also want to shout out some of the countries that have supported us through all podcasting platforms, including our website, which is www.theqipodcast.com. I want to shout out, of course, the good old US of A, Spain, the UK, Netherlands, Belgium, Canada, France, New Zealand. Continue to support us. And Africa, come shout us out. Come check us out, please. Let's kick this off. We are interviewing a journalist and future author, Jasmine Vaughn-Hall. She writes for the York Daily Record, and some of her articles have gone national for newspapers like USA Today. Now, rather than give you a breakdown of what we talk about, I'll just take you straight to the interview. Check this out. Here we are in the Lion's Den. I'm your host, DJ 10th Power of the QI podcast, and today with me I have an amazing journalist, soon to be author, or are you an author already?
Soon to be, almost there. Yep, almost there.
Great. Jasmine Vaughn-Hall is with us today, and I have to say I have one of your articles in front of me. It's the cop's daughter saying Blue Lives Matter doesn't honor police, it divides us all, which really said this woman, gets it. There's so many articles that I've read about Black Lives Matter and proponents and opponents of it, but I think yours tells the truth across the board, whether you're pro Blue Lives Matter or whether you're pro Black Lives Matter or somewhere in between. I think you covered all the bases in this one article alone.
Right. I mean, to be clear, like, I need people to remember that it was an opinion piece. I got, a little bit of backlash from it, from just different people. I mean, I'm not name dropping, but obviously people are allowed to have their opinion, and I had my own as well. Right. But for the most part, a lot of people shockingly were like, this was really, just educational for me. Mm-hmm. All I really did was took my insight. If you read the article, you'd know that my mom, my dad, my stepdad, my stepmom, my former stepdad were all police officers. Mm-hmm. And I'm only speaking from that truth of being raised by police officers and forming my own perspective about, policing and being a Black woman. My dad's a Black man, my brother's a Black man. Like, it's just my opinion that I formed based on my upbringing and who my parents are.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's amazing about that is that I think you covered all the bases here. So I guess I'm really confused that people would take to this personal. It's almost like you're in my head with what you typed here in this opinion piece. This is exactly my thinking. And you mentioned that all 4 of your parents were police officers. What was that like growing up in an atmosphere like that?
Right. So I was born in Baltimore. I grew up in Los Angeles. My mom got married and we moved to Los Angeles. So I didn't have, all of my parents around all of the time. I was very much a bi-coastal kid because my dad was still here on the East Coast. So when I was in Los Angeles, my mom and my stepdad were with Los Angeles Police Department. And then when I would come to the East Coast in Baltimore for vacations or Christmases, my dad and my stepmom were with the Baltimore Police Department. A lot of people ask me that question, and I really can't say that I was, brought up in like some militant lifestyle, like I had these certain expectations, but I always had an understanding of the law and how it worked. I wouldn't say I was very much like, oh my gosh, you guys need to stay away from the police or do what you're supposed to do, because sometimes police are wrong and sometimes you're not always in the wrong, but you should always know, just your rights and things like that. Mm-hmm. I think growing up with my mom, when she put that uniform on, she was just almost like a completely different person. It would almost get to the point where I'm just like, should I hug you? Like, can I hug you right now? Are you my mom? Like, she just had that like ambiance. I was just like, you can't like mess with me right now. you know, and she had to be like that, especially, you know, in LA as a woman, you know, just doing what she has to do to, you know, pursue that career. So I would say I had a pretty normal childhood. It's just I always had an understanding of, you know, the role the law plays in society.
Let me ask you this. You say saying Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that you have blatant disrespect for police officers. Even I don't want you to, you know, call anybody's name out, but can you share some of the backlash that you did receive from writing this opinion piece? Because I think that says it in a whole, that people have tried to flip the narrative on saying Black Lives Matter means that we're saying nobody else matters, especially police officers. And it's almost like the same thing they tried to do with defunding the police. We're not saying take all money away from police. But can you share some of the stories or opinions of people, why they felt like what you were saying was wrong?
You know, I think it also speaks to people trying to change the narrative.
Yep.
Is, you know, I put out this piece, that's my opinion, and people are going to pull out what they want to
Yep.
fit the ideas that they have. So for some people, it was just they read the title and that was it. You know, what are you going to get from the title? Obviously, the title is going to pique your interest because you're like, wait, what? But once you read it, you understand where that idea like came from, how it
Yep.
formulated. I think, you know, a lot of people were saying I was kind of being a terrorist against police, saying that, you know, police officers deserve to be, you know, assassinated and killed while on duty, which is completely opposite of what I was saying. Why would I ever condone that? A lot of the people that I know are part of law enforcement. My parents, again, are law enforcement. That was a very far stretch from the idea. And then it's also people who, you know, put up this opinion where, well, what about the names of police officers? You're saying, you know, Breonna Taylor, you need to say her name. You need to say Ahmaud Arbery's name. I'm like, okay, no one has ever said that the lives of police officers don't matter. When you're saying Black Lives Matter, you're not saying that police officers' lives don't. And I think there's like this weird connotation that when you say Black Lives Matter, that you're saying that those are the only lives that matter, and that's not what people are saying. At least that's my opinion. That's not what I'm seeing. And again, it's just people pulling out what they want to read
Yep.
and, you know, interpreting it how they want. And to be honest, like I wouldn't take away the fact that I put out this article. Yeah, I got some backlash from people, but I also got some really good insight from people who just never heard of anything from that perspective, you know, which is fine. Like I would be more than willing to share my perspective again. And if I have to take the backlash with it, then that's okay. That's what journalism is about. It's not about making people comfortable. Like, I'm not here to make you comfortable. That's what pillows are for. Like, I'm here to, you know, ruffle some feathers and open that thinking, you know?
Right. And at least that means that people are reading, or at least attempting to read, what you're writing about. So it's the article is getting the attention that it deserves.
Right.
You know, the thing about the Black Lives Matter movement is that it's not just Black people that are saying this. You have Latino people saying this. You have white people saying this. But I'm trying to figure out how it got lost in the sauce, the true message of it, how it got lost in the sauce. And could it be from some of the rioting that has taken place and how it's kind of moved in that direction? Because the whole message just kind of got muddled. Now Black Lives Matter protests have been associated with violence, and that's not what it's about.
Right. I mean, you know, just like, you know, just different protests and things like that, I think that Black Lives Matter is susceptible to like hijacking for a specific purpose. You know, not everybody who is saying Black Lives Matter has the same intention, you know, has the same original intention. You know what I mean? Like, it's unfortunate because it's such a, I wouldn't say broad, but there's a lot of different people who support it, that it again, it's susceptible to people who just want to like dilute it. And it's unfortunate. There's no way to really put a pause on that or to pinpoint that. It's like once you open something so broad that people want to be on board for, you have to be ready for people who are ready to infiltrate that.
Yep.
You know?
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but, you know, even the protests, and I know you interviewed Arlette and Zipporah, about their protest that they had. And I actually wrote a column about going to that protest with my husband as well.
I read it.
And yeah, thank you. And I was so surprised by just like the different types of people like that were gathering, young, old, black, brown, white, like just so many different people. And it's like I'm glad that I went to that, because it was, just a pillar of what my understanding is of that, the phrase, the movement. And it's unfortunate that there are people who just want to craft their own narrative and make it something that it's not. But again, like I said, it's susceptible to that because it's such a big, big statement and it's such a big thing. There's always going to be somebody or a group of people that, have a different agenda.
I think what was great about that protest march is that two young ladies put it together because they wanted to be part of the movement. And I believe nowadays that younger people are getting it. We have the Greta Thunberg, who fights for clean climate air. And yet, there's certain people that attacked her because she wants something good out of her air that she's got to breathe. And so I don't understand the attacks against her. I love the fact that these kids are involved. Kids are smarter nowadays. And, it gives me hope about the future because I am a grandfather. So I still believe that racism is taught, right? So that's always going to be here.
Yes. I don't know if you had a chance to read Bobby Simpson's op-ed, and he was giving advice to, young Black Lives Matter advocates, and he said that in most cases, the only thing that will change for diehard racists is when they are in the cemetery. And that was it stood out to me so much because I'm just like, racism isn't this 2-minute rice that people just started eating. People have been feasting on this for decades.
Yep.
And it's served by your family. You don't just wake up a racist.
Nope.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It's taught, it's fed, it's bred, it festers, and it spreads.
Right.
And it's going to take work. And I wish I had a solution to how we just pause it, but it's like, you're only one person. And like I said, this has been going on for decades.
Right. Last night, and it was mentioned about the 70 million people who voted for Trump in this year's election. And we talked about how those people who don't talk about his racist attitudes and the things that he says, they've embraced that in voting for him.
They crazy as hell.
The person I was talking to felt like, he brought these people out. And my thing is, they were always there. He just put it in our face. He let us know the enemy, so to speak. And I'd rather know the enemy. I'd rather know that you vote for Trump, which means, birds of a feather to me flock together. You are the company that you keep.
Yep.
So if you believe and voted for him, then you like what he says about Latino people. You like what he says about Black people, and you embrace that. Don't tell me that it's about his 401k. That's a bunch of nonsense. I have a 401k. Since he's been in it, I've actually lost money in it.
Right.
So I think that I just think that people don't look at the total package when it comes to him. To me, it shouldn't have been that many people that voted for him, but this is the country that we live in, and we're totally divided.
Yep.
Right. I mean, as a reporter, I'm definitely politically tapped after this week. It's been,
It's draining.
It's definitely draining, and when you're in it every day, for your job, it's definitely something that you try to unplug with. But I will say that I think in my lifetime, this will probably be one of the most consequential presidential elections I'll see. At least I hope that it is.
Right.
But I mean, one can only hope.
Right. Getting back to your article, one of the things that struck me to the point where I had to highlight it, you said, no one is born blue or destined to be a police officer at birth. It's a choice and a noble one. People are born Black, and they are affected by that very fact every day. Their skin is not a uniform. They can't take it off when their shift is over.
Speak your
truth. That's an eye-opener in this entire article, because I don't think people realize that, and which is pretty much the point of Black Lives Matter. is that this is how we live every day. There's not too many people that would trade places with us. And that's the fact.
Right, exactly. And just to your point, I think a lot of people resonated with that line because if you don't, how can I explain this? If you don't have to live a certain way, it's not your job to think in that way, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's interesting to me when people are just like, well, it can't be that bad. Or, just things like that, dismissive things like that. And it's just like, how can you say that? Like
Mm-hmm.
It's people, I guess what it is people not understanding their privilege. Everybody has some type of privilege. Like I have privileges,
Mm-hmm.
But it's highlighting that people need to understand what their privileges are. And it's not saying that you have to, just put in all this work, but just sympathize and empathize and try to understand is what I'm saying. Is like we have all these different identities and responsibilities, and it's just like if we just took some time to understand our differences instead of like putting them on this platform to say like, okay, well maybe we shouldn't be around each other or maybe we shouldn't do this or that because of our differences. Like I can't imagine how many like wars we wouldn't have had or how many like just crazy things happening if we would just respect and understand our differences and know that people's lives in America are different based on gender, race, and a collection of different things. It's not the same for everyone. If it were, why would Black Lives Matter exist?
Exactly. Yep. You're bringing more diversity into the job where you work as well. Is that correct?
Right. Yes. I work at the York Daily Record. And I am the only Black woman that works there. But, diversity is a big thing that we're working on, it's a weird industry to get into. Not everybody wants to be a journalist. And I commend people, if you're listening to this and you're in college and you want to be a journalist, I mean, give it a try before don't knock it before you try it. I'll say that. Mm-hmm. And again, as much as I'm, definitely impartial about things as a reporter because that's my job, like I'm always going to be a Black woman. So I'm always going to have just, a different perspective and a different take. And again, with my family being in law enforcement, that's just the opinion that I have. And that's another thing that I really want to stress is like, that was an opinion piece. It wasn't me reporting on anything specific. And I think that's where it got kind of diluted with people is they're like, oh, wow, this reporter is like reporting on this. And it's like, no, it says it at the top. It's an opinion. Mm-hmm. So that's just something I really want to clarify with people before you vilify the entire article.
I think it's interesting, though, that they would vilify such a thing from, and I just think that the media is getting beaten up in such the wrong way. I'm not one, as we discussed in previous conversations, I'm not one to embrace conspiracy theories and QAnon and nonsense like that. I'd rather get the facts, and that's why I support our media. I don't think that they're the enemy. I'd rather read articles from you than get nonsense from Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, and Tucker Carlson, because why these people have a platform, they're watched, so I guess, I just think people rather the lie than the cold hard truth. And that's the thing that bothers me the most about the state of where things are right now.
Right. And I think it's so interesting that, sometimes people make it at like media and, law enforcement are at odds. But ultimately, and I was talking about this with a retired police chief who actually emailed me about the article, and we've been going back and forth and just talking about different things in open dialogue. And you were talking about this idea that police officers and media kind of have the same making up to do and responsibility to the public, because we both need to reaffirm that trust with the community. We both have the same jobs, except I'm doing it with a pen and you're doing it with a badge. Mm-hmm. But we both need to just mend that trust from the community, because there is some distrust there in both of our industries. Right. And it's unfortunate because, media is supposed to inform, police officers are supposed to protect. Mm-hmm. Those are two very important things, in your livelihood, just as a human being in the community. And it's like we both have jobs to do, and it's the same job, just we have different avenues of doing it. So it baffles me that, we're at odds sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's like we should be working together to fix this similar problem that we're having, and that's a distrust from the community and the public.
You also wrote an article about, forgive me, the lady's name escapes me, but a lady who had suffering from the coronavirus.
That was actually Tanya Larry. Yes, Tanya Larry.
Right.
Yes.
Do you know how she's doing as of now? Have you spoken to her recently?
I'm pretty sure that she's recovered. I followed up with her about 2 weeks after we did that article, and she was recovered. She's a really big pillar in the community. She's always doing some sort of community effort. She's a part of the movement, and I'm sure a long list of just different nonprofits. She's really vocal, just about certain things in the community. I'm pretty sure she was born and raised here. And that was sort of like an eye-opening thing, just for me, because I hadn't spoken with anybody who had contracted it, and she was a really good person to talk to, because she just doesn't do the BS. She's going to tell you like it is. She's not swayed or hindered by anything that's influencing her to say anything but what she wants to say.
I think the thing that got me about reading that article was I just saw a tweet from somebody that I used to work with, and they had said, because of the election, that they haven't seen any news media discuss anything about the coronavirus in the last 2 or 3 days because of the election. And I'm thinking, well, maybe you need to remove yourself from Fox News, because I saw the conversation still being talked about on CNN and MSNBC. Then I come across your article, and his point was, that this whole thing is fake.
Oh my God.
Like, how can 240,000 dead people be fake? Like, I can't believe that people are actually still saying that this virus is fake. I've lost a cousin. My in-laws have suffered, have ravaged their home with coronavirus, mother, father, and daughter. And there was nothing fake about that. So I don't, what is it going to take to, besides them getting it themselves, to wake up? Because we're not going to move this economy until we handle the virus.
Right. And it goes back to, I think, people pulling what they want from a narrative and creating their own. It's like, you can't take away the fact that we've lost thousands of lives, not just in America, like globally. Like, this is a global thing. And I highly doubt that every country decided to get on a Zoom call and say, hey, we're going to make up this virus so that we can, promote whatever agenda. That's not what it is. It's like, just believe the facts. You have medical facts in front of you. Every day I'm looking at the numbers. There was a time, during this pandemic, where every single day I was jotting down how many cases we had, how many deaths we had. And it was daunting. And I don't know anybody directly, like in my family, who's been affected by it. But just, reading stories all across media, that's not made up. There's people who had to say goodbye to their family through a screen.
Now, you're also writing about the local York music scene. What are you seeing as far as the music scene that's happening out here? Is it a broad spectrum where we're getting hip hop, R&B, Latino music, and whatever? Is it a broad spectrum, or is it kind of just channeled on into one avenue, which is like, say, hip hop?
You know what? I was actually really surprised with the different artists out here. Again, moving from Los Angeles to York County was definitely a culture shock. And York is small, but the art scene is so diverse. Like, I've done a story on country music artists. I've done a story on former military turned hip hop artists. It's a really eclectic group of people. I really would like to work with more Latino artists, because I don't believe I've worked with a Latino artist just yet. But again, COVID has sort of messed up
Right.
our ability to meet and things like that. But I definitely still want to dig deep on the art scene here because I was, I didn't know what to expect. And I will say that I was really surprised with just the different avenues of art. And it doesn't just have to be music either. I've done different, mediums. I just did a story with Celeste, and we did, art. It was different types of art. I talked with Miles and Cisco on their segment downtown with their photographs from the protests and things like that. It's different mediums, so I won't say I just cater to, music. But I'm definitely looking forward to doing more just in the York community as far as the art scene, because it's so much, and I appreciate it because, again, York is small, but there's so much in that scene. It's ridiculous.
Let me ask you, have you started working on your memoirs yet?
I have not. What's so funny is I do this really weird thing in my writing process where I will write the last sentence or the last paragraph of whatever I'm working on before I even start it. I don't know what it is. I've been like that even in school when we had an essay to do. I'd be like, oh, I know how I want to end it. So I already know how I want to end it, and I know what scene I want to set for that ending, but I still got to figure out all the other parts.
Okay. So are you working on something in the immediate future that you can share with us?
Yes, so I like to write little quotes, just those little things that get you throughout the day. If you follow me on Facebook, actually, follow me on Facebook, Jasmine Vaughn-Hall. There's a dash in the Vaughn in the Hall. But I'm putting together just all of my original quotes into a book. And it's going to be called Umbrella for Every Storm. And I'm going to have that out. Yeah, I'm going to have that out before the end of the year.
Okay.
So definitely, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And I'll definitely send out some updates about it. But I'm excited. I've been working on it for a while.
Well, I thank you for your time today. It's a beautiful, bright day out, so much so I had to put some of the lighting down in here because it was all in my face. But thank you for coming on the QI and discussing your articles. And we look forward to seeing you again very soon when your book comes out.
Awesome. I look forward to coming back and giving you an update on just, a crazy little life here.
Well, thank you, and you enjoy the rest of the day, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks. You too.
Take care.
And that does it with my interview with Mrs. Jasmine Vaughn-Hall, journalist and future author. We'd like to bring her back once again to talk about her book at the end of the year. I want to send a special shout out to our producers, Angry Bo Productions, for all of your hard work that you guys do in the booth. If you have any questions for us, if you liked this episode or didn't like it, if there's someone you want to see interviewed, or if you want to be interviewed, hit us up at theqipodcast@gmail.com or therealqipodcast@gmail.com. You can also see me floating around on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the QI Podcast. Until next time, I am your host, DJ 10th Power. We'll see you soon. Peace.